All right, so one of the things that came up over this assignment was just ways to kind of make our stuff a little bit more efficient, a little bit easier to work with. If you remember from our previous stuff, I don't think I have it in this one. Come on. There it is. Okay, I do. In this end one, we're going to be doing this a lot, right? So we're going to be actually taking our name, our title composition, and we're constantly going to be changing what that title says, right? Every assignment. So when you turn in your type 1, it'll say assignment 2, text transitions, and then assignment 3, 3D unfold, and assignment 4, whatever it is. So it's very easy to get to. We know where it is. We can just go through all those lists and just type the stuff out. It's not a huge deal. But there's always ways that we can make stuff more efficient and more easier to work with. A couple people said that they want to create variations of colors on their title too. So mine is dominantly blue. If I wanted to create a green one or a red one, I don't want to have to go through and dig through all my layers to do it. It'd be great to have it set up one time so that it could just be working one time, okay? So what I'm going to do is go into my original one. Title sequence. That's it. And template. All right, so here is my final composition. Okay, so what I want to do in here is, like I said, it's not a huge deal. If I needed to change the name of this, I could just simply click on it and then retype in what I want it to say. That's not, like I said, a huge deal. Same thing there. But let's pretend that I had assignment number 1 there, but then I also had the word assignment number 1 somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else. So I had like 3 different spots that I have to go back and change it. I risk, obviously, not typing it correctly each time. So one time I may type it and I may write assignment number 1. Then the second time I write assignment number 1. And then the third time I write something else number 1 or 2 or whatever, okay? So what I want to do is I'm going to create basically a controller that allows me to automatically type stuff in or to easily type stuff in. So I'm going to go to the very, very top of all of my stuff, and I'm just going to make a little text box, and I'm going to type in assignment number 1, and I will make this smaller so we can see it, and I'll pick a better font so it doesn't look so weird. That's good enough. Okay. All right. Now this doesn't have to be on the screen, but obviously when it goes off screen we can't see it, so that's something we have to kind of pay attention to. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to duplicate it and put it here too, just so I have 2 copies of this. Okay. So this one will be assignment 1. This one will be page transition. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to automatically set what this says based on what I've typed here. Okay. So I'm basically going to lock this so I don't accidentally move it or change it or whatever. I want to be able to type this and have that change. So what I'm going to do is in my layers down here, remember how I have all of these other layers. And this is where it gets confusing because every time you come back to this, you have to kind of get into that zone of where is all of this stuff. If you have it right at the top, it makes it so much easier to say, I changed the top 3 things, that's all I need to worry about. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, for right now at least. There we go. I'm going to toggle my switches so that I can get the little shy guy. I'm going to click on the little shy guy to get him to go away, and then click that. Okay? That way I can focus on just what I'm working on right now. All right? Again, super helpful stuff. Try to get used to using some of these. So here is my page transition up here. Here's my assignment 3 is what it's called up there. So I'm going to just open this up. I'm going to go here, here, and then this one, which is, it says assignment 1, is going to be this one's assignment 1. So just like before, remember when we did the little streaks on the S, we held down Alt and we clicked the stopwatch, and that allowed us to connect it to certain stuff. Okay, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to hold down Alt on this text here, and then I'm going to drag the little pick whip to the text that's up there. Now what should happen is it should take whatever I've typed in the top one and put it in that bottom one. Okay, now we don't notice a difference because it was the exact same thing I typed, assignment number 1, assignment number 1. But now if I go in here and I type assignment 2, you'll see how it changes assignment 2. Now in this case, it's not a huge deal. I only have one instance of my actual word, assignment 1. But again, if we had our word assignment 1 and then we had a reflection of assignment 1 and then we had something else with assignment 1 in there, that'd be 3 different spots. We'd have to change it. That could be a big hassle, okay? And the same thing for our page transition. I would just open up the appropriate boxes. I would alt-click on the one I want to have changed and drag it to the one that will be the one controlling them all. Okay, so now again, this has page transitions, and then the next one will be title transitions or text transitions. Okay, so very easily I could change that. And then what I would do is I would just have these 2 eyeballs off so that they don't actually render out, because that would look weird. We want to just have those there so that we can change those things. Okay, so that's part of that. I'm going to unshy guy this stuff. Now let's say that I wanted to change the color of all of my items in my scene. So right now it's pretty uniform across this entire thing. It's pretty much dominantly blue, like I said, with the exception of this white right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an adjustment layer. And when my adjustment layer is on the very top, it affects everything that's below it. Okay, so again, if I had certain things that I wanted to change, I may drop that between certain layers so it doesn't affect other stuff. So on this adjustment layer, I can go to my color correction. I can go to tint. I can try the tint and see if that works. Remember I said that they're all not going to work perfect every time. You just got to play around and see. So in this one, I can make this, let's say, red, like that. And you'll see how it changes all of my color to red. Even back here where it's white, because I haven't changed what my white is mapped to, it's cool. It keeps the white as white and just tints everything else that reddish color. Okay? So that's one thing that I could use. I could also use, if I went to color correction and I use my hue and saturation, and I just changed my hue here, you can see how it shifts my color from blue to purple to orange to green to whatever. I could also play with my saturation. I could also play with my lightness. Okay? So again, another way that I could modify everything. Now, because this is, again, something else we have to know what we're trying to modify, it can be daunting trying to keep track of all these different things. So what I like to do is you can right-click on stuff. I have to right-click in the right spot, which is right here on the color, and pick a color. So in this case, I can make these yellow, and in my brain, I would say, okay, yellow is something I'm going to use as my controlling objects. So anytime I see yellow, that's something I'm going to use to control other stuff. That way it stands out from all the other layers that are there, okay? Now on this adjustment layer, I may not want to click on the adjustment layer and see all of this. I may want to just be able to change a slider, and that's all I want to be able to do. Okay, I don't need to see all of this stuff. So I can make what's called a null. And a null is basically just an empty object. It allows us to put stuff in it to control other stuff. When we get to our Angry Birds assignment, we'll use this one a lot. But for this, we'll just start introducing it. So I'm going to rename my null color controller. Okay. And what I'm going to do is under the effects, there are the things called expression controls. So when I hit Alt and I click that stopwatch, After Effects does it for me, but essentially what's happening is I'm writing an expression. I'm linking attributes together, okay? So what we can do is we can use the expression controllers to help us link things together, right? So if I go to angle control, this gives me an angle. Now the reason I chose angle in this case is because if I go back to my adjustment layer, look at what kind of control the master hue is. It's an angle, right? There's a color wheel, and it's spinning us around that color wheel 360 degrees. So that's what I want to do, is link this color wheel to this angle control right here. And again, I want to make sure I name this overall color tint. There we go. And I do the same thing. I just open this up until I get to where it says my stuff, color range. And then I open this one up. This one may not work because of its color range. We'll see. If I alt click and then I grab that. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, that's why. I'm going to go to colorize. There we go. And then colorize will work because colorize gives me the same controls, but I get the colorize hue. Now I can alt click that and drag this to angle. There we go. So now I have this. I can change that value, and you can see how it updates that color pretty easily. Now what's neat about this is that once I have all of that stuff done, I can take all of these layers, hit the little shy dude, shy them, and now I don't have to worry about accidentally ruining any of my other stuff. I also probably want to lock them too. I'm going to grab all of these and lock them. And then hit the shy guy. Now, even with them locked, I can still change the properties of them because I've allowed access to those properties to get changed. So now I can go to turn these guys on and say assignment 3. Click off that. 3D unfold. And there's assignment 3, 3D unfold. I turn off these two so they don't render, and then we're good to go. Okay, so just something that'll make your work a little bit easier trying to link these items together. Now, when we get into doing the Angry Bird one, we'll take it a step further and we'll actually link between compositions. And what I mean by that is we'll actually be able to go and click on this composition and change something else in that composition, okay, which can be incredibly helpful. Especially when we get into, let me just save this so I have it. When we get into something like that one, where is my end one? Final comp right there. Nope. This is the life of an artist, right? Final comp vignette 2. There's so many final comps. When we get into this, I could actually put the controls right on this composition and control everything right from here, okay, which is really helpful. Cool. All right, so that was one thing that, again, is can be incredibly helpful. Another thing that came up was just different things we can do with, this kind of effect, okay? So one thing we can do with this is that once I have that evolve script, and that's it being written out, and if you remember, it's right here, okay? That one layer right there is my evolve. So I'm going to go and copy this and just make a new composition and drop it in, just so we can play with just that. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a color correction to this, a hue and saturation. I'm going to colorize it. The reason I have to colorize this is because it's white. Because it's white, I can't just change the color because it already is like a maximum lightness and a lowest saturation. So once I colorize it, then I can take some of this lightness down and introduce some color into it. All right, so I'm going to take this up, super bright, and then I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. There we go. And then for each one of these, I'm going to change the color. So this one will be red. This one will be that, sure. This one will be... Oops, make sure I click the right one. There we go. That's cool. I can obviously change the colors later too, but for now this is working. And then I'll go with that at the end. Oops, that's the same color at the beginning. Where's green? I didn't use green yet. There we go. Okay. All right, so now I have these 5 different layers, all different colors stacked on top of each other. So now, if you remember our page transition one, our next step, and when we duplicated something, was just to offset it. So if I just offset this a few frames, And then I offset this one a few frames. Then I offset this one a few frames. Then I offset that one a few frames. What we should get is this kind of like colorful way that it's going to write our stuff. See how fancy that is? That's like amazingly fancy, right? It's like Google. I stole it from Google. Okay, and it's doing the same thing, right? All we're doing is taking that flat color, changing it, and then just modifying when it happens and just overwriting it, which is, again, a nice little cool effect on top of everything else we've done to our work. Of course, you want to end with green. All right, another one that came up. Ink. So what I want to do is find an ink video. Black, white background. Red and ink. That might be cool. So that one could be cool there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into After Effects. Let's see, which one will this work good on? All right, we'll do it on this one here, I guess. Best Reaction 003. So under my compositions, I should have one Best Reaction 003. I'm going to drop it onto a new composition. That makes a new composition exact size and fitting of everything. Okay. Let me just throw these into this here so I don't get confused. Here's some audio. I'll throw in my audio folder. And then I'm just going to bring in my footage. 1900, Wise Sayings, Movies, there's 2 ink blots. Okay, and I'm just going to drag them down into this area. All right. So now, what do these look like? Let's go with the first one here, this ink blot. So that's what this looks like. Now, what's neat about this is just the pattern. That's all we're after, is this organic kind of growing pattern that's happening on top of the ink. But what we can use it for is, if you look at it, we have white and we have black. And if you remember from some of those things we did where we created masks, that's what we want to do, is create a mask using this. So I'm going to switch the script here. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to put my ink on the top, my Best Reaction on the bottom. I'm just using the Best Reaction just so I have something colorful to show it. You could use it for anything, okay? Then I'm going to hit my toggle switches and modes. I'm going to use a track matte. Now before, what we did is we used an alpha matte. When I draw a shape inside of After Effects, it creates an alpha channel. It actually creates transparency. There's no transparency on this ink blot. It's a black blob of ink on a white background, so there's no transparency. So I want to create a luma matte, and what a luma matte does is it reads the brightness values. Wherever it's bright, it's transparent. Wherever it's not bright, it is not transparent. Okay? Now I actually want to invert my luma matte so that it's the opposite, because I want the black area here to be where I see my stuff, not the white area. Okay, so now watch this. So what it's doing is it's actually like a mask for my items growing into it. Okay, now what's really cool about that is I can take that blotch, I can duplicate it, offset it, rotate it, move it around, and create several blotches and have this thing kind of coming together as this really nice, awesome piece. So I'm going to take this blot and I'm going to pre-compose it. I'll call it center blot. That makes complete sense, right? Good. All right, so I'm going to go into center blot. I'm going to take this piece of footage. Notice how my background here is black. In After Effects, because this is a composition, this actually will read as transparent, okay? However, just to be double safe, I always like to go to my comp settings and change the background to white just so I don't get confused and not see something. So I'm going to take that blot and duplicate it and move it here and rotate it and duplicate it again and move it here and rotate it again. Now what you're going to see is the white is actually cutting out some of those things, and that's going to look horrible on my in the other screen. So that's where I can use these modes. The modes are the same thing that you would see in Photoshop. So when you go into those, you would see darken, multiply, add screen light, and all that stuff. Okay, so if I do multiply, what that's going to do is think of it like an actual math program. Black is 0, white is 1. Okay, so if I multiply 1 times anything, what do I get? The same thing, right? You guys are early birds. All right. So if I change all these to multiply, what it's going to do is basically take the white and just let that white be transparent. Okay, it doesn't screw up anything. In the black areas, though, as I move that over, you'll see how it actually darkens, which will then create a cooler effect inside of the other comp because of how it's going to blend together. Okay, so I can just duplicate again, rotate. I could also scale these down so that I have some different areas. The goal of this is that I would have enough of these to cover the entire screen. There we go. This one, that. There we go. And I think I just need one more maybe over on this side here. All right, there we go. So it doesn't have to fill perfectly. The idea with this is that you want it to just create a nice little look to it. All right, that's cool. Best reaction 004. So now if we watch this, oops, hold on, don't look at it yet. I want to offset them. If I don't offset them, then it looks really stupid. There we go. So over 2 seconds, that should be cool. All right. This one here, multiply. Then we'll invert. Hold on. It's white. All right, I'm just going to throw in a solid that is going to be white on the bottom of this. There we go. Okay. Alright, now to make that even cooler, if I take this and I color it blue, like a light blue maybe. I've been to this menu a million times, and every time it's like, where is that thing at? They're in alphabetical order, I know that. There's blue, is right there. Let's go like that. Alright, that's cool. Alright, so now we get this cool look. Now the reason I choose blue is because it kind of looks like ice forming on the windshield. So that's what we get. And it's cool because it keeps growing throughout because that animation keeps playing. So even though the video underneath has stopped, that growing still happens. And that's like a neat little effect. Okay, so that's very cool. I could do the same thing with the red and black one. So there's the red and black one right there. It's still going to use the brightness. So it's going to use we've inverted it. So it's going to use not this. It's going to use the black is going to be visible. The red is going to be partly visible. I'm going to rotate this around 180 though because I want it to grow from the bottom up. There we go. And I will just turn that off. Make sure it's on there. Cool. And now it's growing. Now what's cool about this video is that it starts off fast like that, but then they've slowed it down, so that looks extra cool. If you weren't aware of it, you can go to this little expander or collapser thing right here. And if you click on that, you can actually stretch your video. So if I don't want that video to be 4 minutes long, I don't know what it is, I can click on it and type in, stretch it to 20%. It was 23 seconds long originally. Now it'll be 4 seconds long. I can turn that off again, rewind that. And then I can even duplicate this and rotate it. Oops. I have to pre-compose it first before I start doing that. Compose. Ink. It says something on there. Buy this. That's what it says. No, sir, I will not. If I was going to make money off this, I would definitely buy this, but I'm not. So I will just put these in place. From there, again, I will go through and switch this to multiply. Now, it may do something kind of weird with the red, but again, we don't care about the colors. All we care about is the mask that's coming through that. Best reaction 04. All right, so you see, even though it's done pretty much, we still have these nice looking edges on here, which looks kind of cool. Again, I could add filters and blurs and whatever else on top of this if I wanted to, just to kind of enhance that effect even more. If you watch TV, like I watch TV, this kind of effect is used like all them up a little bit. This is, you know, it's a neat little effect. Obviously, just like everything, you don't want to overdo it. I wouldn't want to have every single one of my text pieces use this effect, or every single piece of my portfolio use it. It's very nice in one piece, maybe something else. Where this really could be used nicely is actually on the 3D unfold, because if you have your treasure map, you want it kind of like dirty, and you could have that effect kind of growing on there too. All right. Was there anything else that I wanted to show? I think that was pretty much it. I think we talked about parenting several times already. Yeah, we'll get into more of that. Okay, yeah. So use some of these, don't use some of these. I just want to make sure you're aware of them because, like I said before, After Effects is a huge program, and I want to make sure that when you leave the class, you're as well versed in it as you can be, or as you want to be. Especially if you decide to go into motion graphics, these kinds of effects are what is going to make the difference between a good piece and a great piece being in your reel. Okay? Any questions? No. Alrighty.